Avalugg has been making waves in NU for quite a few weeks now, and as I've mentioned multiple times in the recent past, I've wanted to do a video talking about why Avalugg is one of the best Pokemon in the current NU metagame. Today we're going to be doing that, and yeah, let's have a great time. As always, do subscribe if you're not already subscribed. A little reminder for that, we're almost at 10k subscribers, so if everyone watching this subscribes, maybe we'll hit it, I don't know, but you know what? Subscribe anyway. Now, Avalugg is a Pokemon with a very traumatic past. We've gone through lots of trauma, being a Pokemon that has never really been able to get past the untiered state. Because, I mean, you look at this thing's stats, it's clearly very, very specialized for one thing, and that is to never get one-shot by a physical attack. And literally, because it has sturdy, but also, even if you took that little one damage, this Mon has a million defense. For example, here just a couple calcs. +2 Glastrier CC does not one-shot. +2 Scyther CC does not one-shot. I'm pretty certain that a Toxicroak Life Orb Adamant CC doesn't come anywhere close to one-shotting. Look, we're talking about stab attacks here. It's pretty egregious. I mean, let's just showcase a couple more, because I think it goes a long way in demonstrating just how absurd this Mon is. This is Paldean Aqua, but the CC is the same idea, right? Choice Band CC from Paldean Tauros. It does nothing. Toxicroak CC. It does so little. Here, Passimian, in case you really wanted to run a Passimian. I'll even give you Tera Fight. Tera Fighting Passimian, this isn't damage! You tell me I do 58? It's really, really depressing, and oh, don't get started on non-super effective moves. Up, here's Scyther Dual Wing Beat. Not even a 4-hit KO. Oh, but don't worry, I Terra it. Now I can maybe sometime 3-hit KO. It's again, just to put it into perspective, this mod is thick, and that goes a long way in this NU metagame. So we look at a lot of the threats. Of course, you've got Pokemon like Bruxish that you really want to check. Caparaja, if it's Heavy Slam, it just literally can't break you. And even if it's Iron Head, it's still not the best matchup ever. You're a lot better, of course, into the table with Iron Head, because you're doing like upwards of 40, I believe. But that Heavy Slam does like less than 25 or something. It's really nasty. Decidueye. This Mon checks Decidueye, and Decidueye is a huge threat right now. You talk about Glastrier. Depending on Terra types, you can actually handle Glass pretty well. And we're going to talk more about you, Mr. Gligar, but let it be known, Avalugg does check Gligar. And there's more, of course. But Avalugg has, again, a shockingly good spot in the metagame. And we've talked about this core a lot, but part of it too is because Chansey is a very prominent Mon right now too. Very useful teammate, because you look at Avalugg's biggest weakness, it's that special defense. Chansey, you look at its big strength, it's that special defense. But why did Avalugg rise in NU right now? Or did it really rise in the sense of it got better? Or was it just always this good if people only realized it more recently? Well, I think the answer is, of course, never that black and white. I think it's a bit of both. So, my members will remember this, because I did a personal VR video right before, I think it was the October tier shift, where I was ranking the Pokemon we had in NU. And what I said about Avalugg, because I put it in, like, I think C, was this. And it was in comparison to Cryogonal. I said both of these Mons, and we'll go talk about this a little bit more when we talk about Avalugg's struggles. I said both of these Mons are pretty bad when you think about just defensive typing and something about them as defensive Mons. Cryogonal is basically the antithesis to Avalugg, because it's got great special bulk, it's also really fast, but it's not as strong, and its physical bulk, I mean, you are getting beat down by like a little poke. That's how bad it is. But what I said was, there's just something about an Avalugg terastallizing that makes me feel so much more annoyed by it when I'm trying to KO it than a Cryogonal terastallizing. and we still tried to KO it. And I think that's just spoken to the prominence of physical attackers within NU forever, and also how a lot of special attackers generally could pivot with, you know, maybe a weak sauce U-turn, but could pivot nonetheless, or a volt switch. When you talk about the table, yeah, a lot of physical attackers can pivot too, but I would say the vast majority through NU haven't been able to. I think it really bodes a lot. It bodes very well for Avalugg, because when it gets in versus these mons, it's generally able to actually stifle them and not give up a ton of momentum. But why has Avalugg gotten so good lately? Because we do need to actually answer this question. Well, I did already answer it. We talked about how it has been good for a little bit, and we see it now really rise because people recognize, oh wait, hey, guess what? Look at all these prominent physical attackers. Avalugg's actually really good into them. But metagame trends solidify this. Because remember, I said I was putting in like a C rank. That's not very good. C rank is like, yeah, you can use this if you want, but do you really recommend it? No. Lately, what's happened? Remember, October tier shifts. Driftblim rises to RU. Serena rises to RU. That's 2 rapid spinners gone. Well, 2 hazard removers gone. And always people are going to be looking for new hazard removers. Yes, you could spam boots, but people like to have options in their team building. Hazard removal is still really, really good, even when you've got that type of Superman archetype on a team where you're just stacking Pokemon that either don't care about spikes to begin with, or you have a million boots users and you achieve the same idea. Look at our hazard setters. When we go down the list, which of these hazard setters like actually are beating you down? Bronzong, if it's Iron Defense with Stealth Rock, maybe it's not the greatest matchup for you. Additionally, I mean, we see this Avalugg set. Keep in mind, this can easily be Body Press. I'm just showcasing Earthquake because Salazzle meta Lamau. But Bronzong, you know, maybe you beat it, especially if it's Heat Proof. You could just Earthquake. Colossal, not a mod I want to 1v1, but I do have Earthquake, so maybe I could Terrastalize and have an edge there. Kaparaja, we talked about. Kaparaja, you just could beat outright. Same with Gligar. These are 2 of the most prominent Pokemon right now for entry hazard setting. Avalugg absolutely stuns on them both. And what's possibly the most important part about this is Gligar Kaparaja is an incredibly common core. It's sort of like the idea of Avalugg Chansey. Raja is a pretty good special wall, and Gligar is, of course, as I've said before, the new Sandaconda, where it is the physical wall. It is the kind of team checker in a way, as I've said before, where the Mon just kind of exists partly to ask the opponent, hey, do you have enough special attacking presence on your team? If not, I'm gonna stick around probably the whole game, and I'm gonna keep inducing these headaches because you can't deal with me. I'm too hard to take down. Even with my lack of complete lack of any recovery, this Mon still manages to give such headache. So Avalugg being able to take on this core of 2 very, very, very good Pokemon just in one slot and always say to them, hey, look, your hazards are going bye-bye, and I also offensively threaten both of you with super effective moves, is pretty just phenomenal. You go like a Klefki. Klefki, I mean, it doesn't really run Flash Cannon from what I've seen. I'm sure that can change. It probably will change because, I mean, Avalugg exists. You want to move to hit the table, but I digress. Lycanroc, I mean, this Mon ain't doing anything to you. It runs a Celerock as its only... A CC, you could run a CC and a Celerock. I'm here to say, lead Lycanroc, I'm not worried about if Passimian's close combat is doing like 40 maximum without terrestrializing. Palisand, not very common. Will say this is probably one of the worst ones, despite it looking like a good matchup, because Palisand will just terrestrialize, and then it beats you down 1v1. Piloswine, another Mon that we've talked about a lot lately, is benefiting similarly to Avalugg from the metagame being so favorable to it. This is a Mon that Avalugg just completely dunks on. Coolfish, not the greatest matchup, because you can just get Barb Barraged, but no, it's okay. Sandaconda, you just sit in front of, and it doesn't really ever beat you. Same with Sandslash. Like, how many of those hazard setters would you say Avalugg actually had a bad matchup versus? Maybe 2? Like, it's insane. And so, as people have just kept building, we've realized, look, the most common hazard core Avalugg dunks on We need more options for hazard removal. Avalugg dunks on, like we just said, the hazard setters. It stands to reason then. Why not use Avalugg? And I think it helps partly too. There was no competition in October really, because what were the other setters? You take Driftbloom out of it entirely. Not the other setters, the other removers. Altaria hadn't really gotten much usage past the first week or two of October. This mod's been kind of on a downward trajectory for a while. People in general even were running the Perish Song set for Altaria. Not even really Defog. And Defog alt people haven't been liking lately because they just feel it's too passive. So we keep looking. Colossal. Well, Colossal's had some sporadic usage, but I don't think it's ever really gotten a firm grip on the metagame. So, okay, we move on. Decidueye, Defog Decidueye. That just doesn't get used. I'm sorry, it's a good set, I think, but it just really sees very minimal usage in the grand scheme of it. And you keep scrolling, you ask yourself where the hazard remover is. It's so dire. Sand Slash, okay. This doesn't move me as a Pokemon too much. I do like physical defensive Sand Slash, but it's not a metagame staple by any means. And when you're trying to compete with Gligar as a physical ground type wall, you better be elite. So, yeah. Scyther, actually great removal. Good work, Scyther. You remained prevalent through this whole time. And a Tatsugiri, y'all know how I feel about Tatsu. I think it's as a spinner specifically is really bad. I think as an HO support mon though is actually pretty viable, and I will be using it on an HOT soon. So I mean, stay tuned for that. All this to say though, Avalugg didn't really have a lot of competition, and when you've got such a good metagame situation where you benefit from the trends and all, the mon really had everything it needed to take off. And of course, one last reminder, terastallizing. I alluded to it when I talked about the Cryogonal comparison. Terastallizing is probably the biggest reason Avalugg even has a chance to be good. Because let's get it clear, right? If Avalugg couldn't terastallize, I don't care how good its matchup is into the meta, it ain't gonna be that insane. And I should even just mention Boots too. Boots terastallizing as a combo has, I mean, it literally saved this mon from being unviable for another generation. What is Avalugg's biggest issue, especially when I compared it to Cryogonal? One of them was the typing. Mono Ice. You think that's a useful typing? No. No! This mon, Ice does nothing for you. It resists Ice. That is all. And so Avalugg often has to be carried by just its defense stat being insane. You're really relying a lot of time on blanket checking a lot of Pokemon just through sheer stats. You know, what's a Bruxage supposed to do when this Avalugg keeps switching in and its Choice Band Wave Crash does less than 30? I don't know, but I sure don't like it. It can flip turn all the time at once. It just ain't ever two-shotting me. I don't care what the Bruxage user thinks is happening. And so, being able to terastallize, get rid of that weakness, and also, I mean, Terra Ground is what we see here. I'll talk about some more set adaptations shortly. Being able to, say, block a Volt Switch from something like a Hisuian Electrode, or Rotom-Mow, or even a Jolteon, and then hit them with that super effective follow-up attack, that is also quite useful. And in Boots, of course, not every game does Avalugg want to terastallize or need to terastallize. Boots similarly fix a lot of the issues with Ice as a typing, especially on a defensive Pokemon. Hazards otherwise are going to be the best way to pressure an Avalugg. And if you don't take Hazards Chip, well, the spawn actually gets to still check things. Y'all saw a lot of those calcs. While the attacks were, from a full HP standpoint, doing very little, imagine if Stealth Route go up. Because now a lot of these moves are actually two-shotting an Avalugg if it takes the damage from rocks. Don't have to worry about that in a Boots gen though, especially because Avalugg doesn't have a lot of incentive to switch into knockoff users to begin with. I mean, like, how many of these Pokemon in the tier am I actually taking a knockoff from willingly? I don't see them. A lot of our knockoff users are special attackers too this gen, which is quite funny. You're talking about like Hoopa, Goodra, Salazzle. I'm not switching these I'm not switching into these Pokemon on my table. I'm sorry. And I wanted to look at this little replay real quick, just kind of skip through turns, but showcase some Avalugg gameplay. As I think it also goes to show a lot of the different set choices you can do. as we go through turns. So, of course, you saw the Avalugg get brought in versus that Gligar, and there was a double switch there to stat out for the Toxic. We've covered this game before, so I'm not going to go over it too in depth. But you also see this matchup for Togepi being as amazing as it is versus the Raja Gligar core. Nothing to spin block the table at any point. It can continuously keep hazards off. And of course, Togepi had brought Hoopa, which is one of the best bonds to try and decimate an Avalugg. It's a strong special attacker. Like, what's a Hoopla gonna need to really try to do to beat down a table? It's very, very trivial. Once again, though, you see the Avalugg gets in versus the Gligar, and just immediately Ka-Chow Rapid Spin, and then you can win some speed ties with the Body Press here. And we also saw the little Iron Defense. We'll talk about Iron Defense on Avalugg, because I do think it's actually a very cool idea. And I'm just trying to get, like, I'm skipping through turns here, I'm just trying to showcase, like, again, this mod being able to do a lot of very, very silly things. But you're going to see, like, this kind of recognition of the Avalugg mirror, I think, too, with the idea of Iron Defense. Because now, since this set that Elias is running is actually what I have in the team builder, although he has Icicle Crasher instead of Ice Spinner, it's a very, very cool option to run if you're okay with being walled by ghost types. Which, I mean, Togepi's got the Chansey. I assume that's the logic there. You don't really care too much about the ghosts. Tera Poison, of course, too, on this kind of set, very, very useful. That way Gligar can't try and just get off an emergency Toxic on you, and that way you always are walling the fighting types. Once again, Raja, in part because of the Rapid Spin boosts, completely fails to deal with Sir Tabletons. Let me just go through a few more turns, and then once again, you see that exchange there going very, very well for this Avalugg over here, because it just what's it supposed to do. And I think that's really... Oh, this is the one thing I wanted to show as well. As you can see, Terastallizing incredible for Avalugg. This Loaded Dice Lycanroc would have taken it down otherwise. Avalugg turns into a Ghost type, and it just doesn't matter anymore. So, what are a whole bunch of other adaptations that you can do for an Avalugg set? Because there surprisingly are a ton. Well, one, you don't need all this defense. You can go offensive. And you can go offensive because at the end of the day, 404 defense is still going to be a lot. And we've seen a lot of people run Gligar alongside Avalugg for a nice hazard stacking core with removal. So you'll do Chansey with Stealth Rock, Gligar with Spike, Avalugg with Rapid Spin. And when you've got a Gligar, you've already got a lot of physical bulk anyway. So you have something that offsets the duty from Avalugg to switch into every physical attacker ever. So you can afford to go more offensive. And this way, if you're dealing with Pokemon like, say, Mesprit, or Mismagius, or Hoopa, even Goodra, I mean, if someone wants to get really, really greedy, for whatever reason, you've got that extra attacking power, you could actually punish these Pokemon, prevent them from coming in so easily versus you. Another option is just to do with Tera types, of course. You could do something like Poison if you wanted, just good for fight resist. Same with Ghost. I'd probably do Ghost more often on Avalugg if you're going with this type of set, even if you've got like Body Press. And then also, because we should showcase it, the Togepi set that was being shown there. I think we also saw, yeah, we did. I'm gonna show that too. So this kind of set would just run max defense. You could maybe go max special defense. I just don't know if that's worth it. And then yeah, here's the Danny set that we saw in what's that tournament called? SCL. Why did I forget? Curse Avalugg, but you don't even have Rapid Spin. So if you want Avalugg to feature as a sort of just bulky setup sweeper that can give you a little bit of extra late game potential, you can even do something like this, and I think that's pretty cool. All in all, though, little summary, just for those of y'all that want a TLDR. Avalugg, in large part, has gotten better because of metagame trends and generational changes. The generational changes help out a ton. You got Boots, so being an Ice type isn't too detrimental from taking hazards. And you got Tera, so being a defensive Pokemon isn't completely stifled by being the absolute worst typing to be for a defensive Pokemon. But in the metagame trends, I mean, just look at it once again. Copperajah, Gligar, the two most prevalent hazard setters, or at least two of the most prevalent, because I don't think I can say that with Chansey around now. I feel like maybe she's got something to say. But that core being so prevalent, Avalugg just dunking on it, that cannot be, like, that can't be overstated. That is veritably huge. while also just fitting in naturally super well in the tier, checking a plethora of stupidly strong fighting types, physical attackers, while synergizing incredibly well with Chansey to form this not unbreakable, but very, very strong defensive core. I hope y'all enjoyed. I will see you all in the next video. I apologize if this feels a little rushed. I have been working a lot the past few days, and I didn't have a whole lot of time to record this. This is being done at like 6 a.m. I hope y'all enjoyed, though. I'll catch you in the next video, guys. Peace.